recent string of animated films coming out, such as Sausage Party and Kubo and the Two Strings, I've decided to do a top 10 video on my top 10 favorite animated films of all time. Before I begin, let me just make completely clear, these 10 films are completely my choices. These are the 10 films I very much liked, and these picks are based off my own opinion. So other than that, let's get into it. Number 10, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. When this film was released, this was released at a time when Disney was going through a bit of a slump. As at this time, 2D animation was starting to go downhill, it wasn't as popular as it once was, and this film was released to a mixed reception, and it didn't do well at the box office. However, that hasn't stopped this film from getting a cult following. It's not a bad movie. In my opinion, it is an underrated gem, as there are parts of this film that are actually pretty amazing. The animation style does look fantastic, and this film is one of the rare Disney films where the supporting cast actually steals the show. And I like the supporting characters, as they did add a lot to the film. I'm not going to say this film is absolutely perfect. There are parts of this film that are a bit hit and miss. Like the writing for the film is a bit hit and miss, and the villain is a stereotype we have seen a million times before. But still, I still love this movie, and it definitely deserves a position on my list. Number 9, Toy Story 3. And at the time, this was a great send-off for these characters, as this both was a fun and emotional ride, just seeing these characters for a third time. And while I do feel like Toy Story 4 is unnecessary, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they continue the story. Getting back to Toy Story 3, this film was, at the time, the perfect send-off for all these characters. And the whole trilogy was basically set around Andy, if you think about it. Because like the first film was basically him dealing with a new toy, second one was him dealing with a toy getting old, and the third one was him going to college and like basically leaving his childhood behind him. And the third film beautifully wrapped up this trilogy. Number 8, Up. At first, I wasn't keen for this film because Up is the stupidest title I've ever heard. It's 2 letters and it's basically Up. What kind of story can you tell with a title like that? And within the first 10 minutes, this film had me hooked. Not only was the first 10 minutes emotionally sad, but it's one of the saddest things I've ever seen in an animated film. In fact, this film is probably one of the most depressing animated films out there. For those who've ever seen the first 10 minutes, you know what I mean. And other than those 10 minutes, this film is beautifully told, well crafted, well written, great characters, great visuals, and it's a very satisfying story with a great message behind it. And this film is definitely worth checking out. If you've never seen it, you have to see this film. It's one of those films you have to see before you die. It's just that amazing. Number 7, Spirited Away. Now, I haven't seen this film in 13 years. And yet, 13 years later, I'm still able to remember the story, the characters, the visuals, the message. This film left a deep impact on me that I'm still able to remember 13 years later. And I have to give credit to this film, as again, I haven't seen this film in 13 years. And yet I'm still able to remember everything that happened. And this film is the only anime film on my list, and it's well deserved. And this film would have been higher, but again, I haven't seen this film in 13 years, so I don't know if my opinion of this film holds up. But it still deserves my number 7 position. Number 6. Toy Story 2. This is my absolute favorite Pixar film. This is the Pixar film I grew up with. I couldn't stop watching it. Not only did I have a more fun time with this film than the first one, but it also gave great life lessons. And while this film definitely has emotional points, this film also has very high moments as well. And this film greatly handled the emotional side and the life side of this film. And it's one of those films where the older I get, the more I enjoy this film. Number 5. Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. Of all the Batman movies out there, none of them have told a more deeper, more in-depth story of Batman. This film is a pure Batman film. It's not Tim Burton's Batman. It's not Christopher Nolan's Batman. This is a pure Batman story, told through great writers, great animation, and a really great story as well. And even though I have said Michael Keaton is the best Batman, Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman. No one can do a Batman voice like Kevin Conroy. And not only do you have Mark Hamill as a Joker in this film, but this film also has a mystery behind it that is worth unraveling. One of the best scenes in the entire movie is the scene where Bruce Wayne dons Batman's cowl for the first time. Just the animation and the music make the scene stand out as one of the greatest scenes on film. This is probably the best story of Batman out there, and it's worth checking out. Number 4, Aladdin. While I would say the more older I get, this film doesn't hold up as much, this film still has great moments that definitely stand the test of time. And I can't go on discussing this film without mentioning Robin Williams as a genie. This performance made the movie. The first act of this film is fine, but once the genie comes in, yeah, that's when the film gets a hell of a lot better. Other than that performance, this film still delivers. Not only does it have a great villain, a great hero, a great princess, but a great story as well. And the only thing that jars me about this film is the fact that they have modern writing in a setting that is clearly set in the past. And it's just a minor nitpick, but it's there. But this film is still a fun film and still worth checking out. Number 3, Batman the Killing Joke. Now, I have given an in-depth review of this film in a 9.5-minute video, so I won't go too much into this film, but if you want to check out my 9.5-minute review of this film, be sure to click on the link in the description below. But yeah, I'm defending this film for what it was. Yes, the first 30 minutes was unnecessary. Yes, it detracts from the film, but I personally enjoyed it. I do agree it is unnecessary and it did feel unneeded and a bit stupid, but for the most part, I found it enjoyable because the first 30 minutes reminded me of an episode of Batman the Animated Series. You have the voice talent there, you have the animation there, and you definitely have the action there as well. Other than the first 30 minutes, the rest of this film is an absolute masterpiece. Not only is it faithful to the story, not only does it have Mark Hamill as a Joker, and I had no problem giving this film a 10 out of 10. I personally like this film from start to finish. If you didn't, that's fine. But in my opinion, this film definitely deserves my number 3 spot. Number 2, Beauty and the Beast. Of all the Disney films out there, this is my number 1 favorite. Not only does it tell a coherent story from beginning to end, not only was it a Disney film that did something different, but this film was also one of the first animated films to ever be nominated for Best Picture. Everything about this film is absolute perfection. The characters are perfect, the villain is perfect, the story is perfect, and even the romance is perfect. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of romance unless it's done well, and here it's done well. And I absolutely love this movie. And just the designs of the scenery and the characters are outstanding. And the music is beautifully composed. This is one of the rare Disney films I hold dear to my heart. It's because this film is one of the rare films that the older I get, it gets better with age. And of course I'm terrified with what they're going to do with the live action remake, because yeah, the animated one got nominated for Best Picture. You better live up to that. Which means you better deliver something spectacular and magical. And I do hope in the future to review Beauty and the Beast, because I really do want to talk about this film in great depth. Because this is my second favorite animated film of all time, and it's well deserved. And my number 1 favorite animated movie of all time is Fantastic Mr. Fox. I'm just going to put it out there, I am the biggest fan of Wes Anderson. I am obsessed with his films. Wes Anderson has a certain style of his own that's so different from any other filmmaker. The writing, the humor, the music, the visual style, and even the framing, because that's one of the biggest things I like about Wes Anderson films. It's just the way he frames his shots and the way he shoots his films. And this film is no exception. Just great characters, great visuals, great humor, great animation. And this is one of the rare few kids films that is actually targeted towards adults. If you've ever seen this film, you've got to admit, it does feel like it's targeted towards an adult audience. The writing isn't targeted towards the younger generation, it's more targeted towards the older generation. And it's because of this writing that I'm obsessed with this film. And just like every time I watch this film, I can't help but crack a smile. It's just that enjoyable. And much like Beauty and the Beast, I do hope to give a in-depth review of this film in the future. And if you haven't seen this film, I would absolutely recommend checking this one out. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to my channel below. I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching.